Hello and welcome back to this channel. In this next series of videos, we will be talking about chapter 3 business environment. In today's video, we will be discussing about the first segment of the chapter, which is features and importance of business environment. Before we do that, let's understand what is a business environment. Environment is anything, the place in which we exist and we do activities, isn't it? So earth is our environment, the town is your environment, the city that you live, the street that you live is an environment. Similarly, a business cannot exist in space or somewhere, isn't it? So business has to exist in earth. So everything that is near and far from that business will comprise of its environment. Okay, so let us understand what are all the dimensions of environment, how they affect a particular business. So if you want to become a graduate in business, we have to understand how there are multiple forces inside an environment and how those forces will have an impact on our business. So the first thing is, in the features and importance, we have to identify, I just said there are forces. So we have to identify what are the specific forces and what are all the general forces. When we talk about specific forces, these are the aspects that particularly affect only my business, or it could affect my sector, my line of business. I'll give you an example. Let's say the government of India has increased the rate of GST on air conditioners. Also, let us assume that we are having an air conditioner business. What is the current rate of GST for air conditioners? It is 28% because it is considered as a luxury good. So it is 28%. What if the government increases the GST from 28% to, let us say, 35%? As of now, the maximum rate in GST is 28%, but let us still assume hypothetically, what if the rate goes to 35%? Already the rates, because of the GST, the ACs are quite on the high end. It starts from at least 35,000, the lowest end of AC that if you buy, and it goes as high as 50,000, 1 lakh, depending on the tonnage that you have in AC. Now, if I have 28%, an AC that costs me 40,000 rupees, as a seller, I'm charging 40,000 rupees to the buyer with 28% GST. If the GST rate goes up to 35%, then the MRP of the AC also has to increase, isn't it? So the 40,000 AC will now suddenly become, let's say, 43,000 or 44,000. So that 7% increase in GST will have a direct impact on the customer's pocket. Now, because the GST rates have increased, the MRP has increased. Because MRP has increased, customers will find it more and more not so easy to buy. That pain factor will be there. When a buyer is making a decision, when he sees an MRP at 40,000 and when he sees an MRP at 44,000, there will be a huge difference in his buying mindset. Now, because of that, my sales will decrease because more and more customers will find it costly and the sales will get decreasing according to that level, same proportion. So this is an unfavorable example. Now let us totally change it in the other way. What if the rates, instead of 28 to 35, it becomes 28 to 18? Government decreases 10%. So let's say government thinks that every city in India is almost hot in summer. Those 3-4 months are totally unbearable. So almost everybody is buying AC. Let's make it more affordable. What if government thinks like that and decides to reduce GST? Now, because of this decrease, it will have a direct impact on MRP. So suddenly the 40,000 rupee AC might become 35,000 or 36,000. Now, because there is a price decrease in AC, more and more customers might find it affordable and they might decide, okay, fine, now we can make the buy. So they might start buying AC. Some customers might have one AC in the house. They might have 2 or 3 add-on ACs to the other rooms as well. So because of this, there is a possibility that my sales might increase overall. So this is the example of specific force. I just gave you an example of the positive as well as negative aspect, the favorable and unfavorable aspect. Now let us see a general force. A general force is anything that affects every business in the country, every business on the globe. So let's see again an unfavorable example and a favorable example. The unfavorable example is COVID pandemic, which we just saw 5 years ago. I hope you are mature enough when that happened. We all saw how COVID pandemic affected every business. A lot of companies had to shut down, do a lot of layoffs. Many people's job got lost. Commerce totally stopped, isn't it? So it did not affect a particular sector of business alone. Everybody faced the heat because of this pandemic. So that was the unfavorable example. Now let us talk about the favorable example. The last 3-4 years, the AI growth in AI sector has absolutely been mind-blowing. We are outsourcing a lot of tasks to AI. Many people are not writing things anymore. They are just giving a prompt to the AI. AI gives them the write-up. They just have to copy paste it now. And a lot of people don't need to create pictures now. They don't need to edit pictures now. They just give AI the command and then it does the work for them. So because of this, again, every industry is applying their own version of AI in their business. Because of that, they are having a lot of cost savings. Any company previously, they used to have customer support. Let's say they were needing 15 to 20 people for a customer service team. And now because of the AI, they can kind of automate a lot of frequently asked questions into a chat box. They still have customer support team, a human involvement in customer support, but they need not have 20 people now. They can do the job with 5 people, with all the other majority repeat tasks will be done by the AI. So the human people will come into picture only when it is a new issue or when it is not solvable by AI. So that's how AI has impacted positively the businesses. That's the first point. Next thing is, you also have to understand the environment has multiple variables. What do I mean by multiple variables? You can see there are several variables which are government, banks, businesses, farmers, public, service sector industry, manufacturing industry. The number of players, I call them as variables. Every environment has a variety of players, so many number of players. Because of this, the environment becomes incredibly complex. I have given you another example. Let's say you have a friends group and you have to plan for a trip. In that group, let's say there are only 2 people, you and your friend. Both of you have to plan for a trip. It will become very simple, isn't it? So you just have to discuss, only 2 people are involved. All the details, up and down schedule, everything will be fixed easily. Where you guys want to go, where you want to stay, everything. But what if 10 of you as a group are planning for a trip? Now immediately, how many interactions will happen? Complexity of the network increases with more and more number of people coming inside. Similarly, the environment will become extremely complex because there are a lot of players involved, because there are a lot of variables involved. These variables are just very tiny sample that I have given. An environment has still more countless amount of variables. These 4-5 that I have given here are just for you to get an idea. Okay, so I just proved the point, it is complex, and also I want you to understand it is completely interrelated and interdependent. With these variables that I have given, we can see how they are interdependent. Government is dependent on people because people pay taxes. People are also dependent on government because government is the thing that provides the road, supplies electricity, sends water, healthcare. So these two are interdependent. Government is also dependent on business and business are also dependent on government. People are dependent on businesses, businesses are dependent on people. So every variable is interrelated and interdependent upon each other. Now, I want you to understand dynamic. Because there are multiple variables that I just explained, environment never stays static because imagine it's a multiplayer game and everybody is playing their own version, everybody is playing their own moves. So if it is a chess, there are only 2 people, the movement is slightly less. But imagine it is a game of chess with 100,000 variables, 100,000 players. How many squares will be there? How many coins will be there? How many pieces will be there? And how many moves will be there? So it is complete dynamic. So regarding this topic of dynamic, I just want you to give you an example. Visualize a railway station. Just sit there in a platform like this for 1 hour and observe things. How many trains will come and go? How many people will come out of the train and board into the train? How many people will decide to just stay? How many people will decide to skip the train and catch the next train? So you just get the idea. You can also do the same, visualize the same for an airport. How many people will walk into the counter? How many people will walk out of the counter? So many examples. Railway station is a dynamic environment. Airport is a dynamic environment. The same way, the overall business environment is also dynamic because there are lots of players and every player will play their own moves. Now, moving on, the last 3 bullet points that I want to discuss here is, if you understand the business environment, you as a firm can spot opportunities, you can spot threats, and based on spotting the opportunity and threat, you can plan your future. You can have your policy formulated for the future. Let me explain how. What do I mean by spotting an opportunity? Recently, we have this news that Apple has decided to open a factory in Chennai, which is basically they are moving a sizable portion of their production from China into India. Particularly, the factories are getting opened in Chennai. In Chennai, there is a place called Sri Perumbudur. For those who are outside Chennai, to give you some context, Sri Perumbudur is like a suburb. It's like an industrial town. People who come from city to Sri Perumbudur, it takes at least 20 to 30 kilometers for them to travel. And it is not so well connected with the city as well because there is no local train that connects Sri Perumbudur with the main city. So it is quite a hassle for the people who are going to get employed into Apple factory, because when a factory opens, a lot of people will join there as workers for job, but they will be somewhat living in the edge of the city and they have to come all the way to this industrial town. Now, how do they commute? If I am a person who has already a cab business, what I will do, I will start buying some 20, 30 extra cars or minivans. I will solicit these future employees who are going to work in the factory and say that I have a cab facility. Are you signing up with me? I will arrange pickup and drop for you. Or I can get an ongoing subscription deal with the Apple factory itself. Now, don't you see? A new factory coming into this location, it will employ at least 3,000 to 4,000 new people. So imagine if there are 3,000, 4,000 people, I will have a definite business opportunity of providing a cab service to this particular factory. So that was the example of opportunity. Now, what could be a threat? A threat is anybody, a new competitor coming in your field. Let's say you are the market leader in the brand that you are having. There are some 10 players along with you. The guy who's ranked at number 5, number 6, he's suddenly having a huge growth in business. His growth is unbelievable. He has done some new thing. Let us say he discovered some new production technique. He came up with a new scientific formula. He patented it, and now the entire business is going to be revolving around that particular player. He is no more of number 5 player. He's soon going to be number 2 and he's soon going to be number 1. So your position is under threat. What you are going to do? How are you going to tackle this situation? Again, another general example is a threat where there is a world war coming. Let's say there is a war scenario in your particular locality. There is a civil unrest. So these are all the things that will be a big threat for your normal functioning of business. Now let us talk about how assessing these threats and opportunities can help you assist in your planning and policy formulation. Let's say you spotted an opportunity. I just gave you this cab service example. You can immediately book, say, 20 to 30 cars and then approach the factory and say that I already have a fleet of 50 cars. I can be an exceptional cab service provider. Which means, let's say you are already having only 10 cars. Now you are going to expand your fleet up to 50 cars. So don't you think you need to invest some money on your assets? So don't you think you should approach the banks for loan and other money facility? So that is exactly planning. So you will plan for expansion and then you will increase your capital expenditure. So you will plan for your finance well ahead. And then what is a threat? How will you plan? Let's say in India, the telecom market is majorly dominated by Jio and Airtel. Who were the third and fourth players? The third and fourth players were Vodafone and Idea. And because Vodafone and Idea were too minimal, they had very less market share, and entirely this market share of telecom is captured by Jio and Airtel. Vodafone and Idea would have thought that we are under threat. Let's say at least we will merge and we will become like a number 3 player in the market. They thought and they came up with the idea and they merged. They thought because of the merger, people will start to perceive them as a big player, and a lot of people will move from Jio to VI and Airtel to VI, but that really did not happen. But at least a company, if it finds a threat, it can make a counter move, it can plan a counter move. There are 5 dimensions to the environment: economic aspect, social aspect, political, legal, and technological aspect. Hello and welcome back. In the last lecture, we saw that there are 5 dimensions to a business environment. So those are economic, social, political, legal, and technological. In this video, we will talk about economic environment in detail. Imagine that you are a company located in India and you want to invest your business somewhere else in abroad. Let's say you have 5 factories in India. Now you need to expand your business internationally. So you are planning to invest in a foreign country. You are looking for a suitable foreign location. Which country could it be? If you are going to enter into a country, don't you think the economical climate of that country should be in healthy position? People should be willing to buy your products in the country that you are planning to invest. Let's say if people are very welcoming and people have the money and people are already kind of rich, then it is easy for you to open a business. What if the country itself where that you are going to invest has a lot of economical problems? The government is not having good economic policy decisions. Inflation is so high in that country. There is not much of financial security, not much of checks and balances. Then you will hesitate to open your factory in that country because it is going to add only to your headache. Businesses from foreign countries, when they are planning to come into our country, or if you are in this country and you plan to open a new business in your country itself, let's say that's your first business, how is the economic environment? That's the first thing you have to see. So the first point that you have to understand while interpreting the economic environment, while assessing the health of economic environment, you have to see what type of economy is being followed in that country. Based on that, the larger 2 types of economies are capitalist type of economies and socialist type of economies. You must have already have some preliminary idea about these 2 type of economies, but in case you don't do, I will explain now. Capitalist type of economies are those economies that encourages entrepreneurship, that encourages businesses. What is capital? Capital is something the owner puts as a capital into his or her business. So it encourages capitals, more and more capital to be put in more and more businesses. So that is capitalist type of economy, which means businesses are encouraged, entrepreneurships are completely encouraged. I just said capitalist economies are friendly towards entrepreneurship. That does not mean that socialist economies completely discourage entrepreneurship or completely discourage businesses. Only that it focuses more on its people. It says that government will control a lot of things, including businesses. In capitalist economies, in free market, I just have written in the second line, free market versus governmental type of economies. In free market, government just does governing activities like law and order and defense, border security, and then basic privileges for the citizens. So government's scope of responsibility is limited towards governance. The business aspect is almost completely privatized and it is given to the hands of the entrepreneurs. That's how capitalist economies work. The socialist type of economies, government thinks that government is the head of everything. So even the businesses will be reporting to the government. So government will be controlling businesses to a larger extent than how it is done in capitalist economies. I will give you examples, then it will be even clear. US, Canada, Australia, these are all economies. They are predominantly capitalist nature. The best example is US. Another good example is South Korea. So these type of economies have lots of businesses. You can see a lot of brand names, particularly from South Korea. You have Samsung, Hyundai, LG. These are all the brands that came from South Korea because entrepreneurship is actively encouraged. The examples of socialist economies are you have China, North Korea, and then you have Russia. Russia is a very good example. Businesses exist in Russia, but everything is under the Russian government. Again, in China, there are businesses, but again, who is the ultimate boss? Government is the ultimate boss. So that's how socialist economy and capitalist economy works. If you are a particular budding entrepreneur, you want to set up a factory in a particular type of environment, you decide which one will be easier for you. Is it easier for you as a businessman to do business in a capitalist economic country or in a socialist economic country? So that's the first point. The second point I want you to understand is also while assessing the economic environment, you need to consider the 2 main factors that will affect any economy. One is the central bank's interest rates. In India, it is Reserve Bank. The Reserve Bank's interest rate and also the Finance Ministry's tax rate on its citizens. So interest rates and tax rates will decide the quality of the economy and also where the economy is headed. Now, at this moment, you have to understand two more words: economy in a boom period and economy in a recession period. So, what is a boom and what is a recession? Boom is any situation where people are so welcoming to spend their money and buy things or enjoy services. People are basically willing to spend money. Money is put into the market and not put preserved inside the pocket of the citizen. Recession is exactly opposite of that. People are not willing to throw their money away. People are not willing to buy. People are not willing to have new experiences. People are only focused on saving their money. Everything will be dull in the recession type of economy. Now, which will lead to boom and which will lead to recession is what we are going to see up next. Now, let us say, what is this interest rate? Recently, the latest news is RBI has reduced its interest rate by 50 basis points. You can see the list of news here. It has been covered by almost every newspaper. Repo rate has been reduced by 50 basis points. That is, previously the rate was 6%. Now the revised rate is 5.5%. What does it mean? It means that banks should reduce their lending interest rate. That is, let's say you are a common public and you want to get a loan from business, either it is housing loan or it is a business loan or a personal loan. Any loan, banks should charge less interest rate on your loan. Isn't it a favorable move? Yes, if you are a borrower, it is a welcoming move for you, because let's say previously a housing loan was 8%, you might get a housing loan now at 7.5%. Again, if you just compare 8% with 7.5%, it might not seem like a big difference for you, but let's say you are buying a house for 3 crores and you are getting a loan for 2 crores. Imagine what will be the amount of 7% on 2 crores and 6.5% on 2 crores. Huge difference, isn't it? So, people who are willing to buy houses are now will be encouraged to immediately borrow because the rate has reduced. Now, what is the contrast of this? What is the counter move of this? Because banks are going to charge less interest on your loan. If you are going to invest your fixed deposit into bank, let's say you invest your money in bank and get a fixed deposit, bank will also pay you less. So previously banks were, let's say, paying 6.5% on a fixed deposit. Now banks, because their lending rate is reduced, their borrowing rate also will be reduced. So previously you were getting a 6.5% of interest on your FD. Now you might get only 6 or even 5.75% on your FD. So that's the other side of the picture. Because of this, what will happen? FD rates have reduced and loan rates have reduced. So because the loan rates have reduced, people will borrow money and more people will come into business. They can get business loans much faster at a lower rate. Because housing loan rate has reduced, people will borrow more and buy more house. If people are willing to buy more houses, don't you think that will incentivize the developers and real estate companies to make and build more houses? So again, if more and more houses are getting built, more and more workers will be employed in real estate construction. That means more and more people will get job. So you see the second order, third order, fourth order consequences of just one rate decrease by the RBI. Now let's say, what is the other side of the picture? Because of the FD rate being reduced by 0.5%, people will save less in FD. Banks will also get less money. Let's say banks are giving 6.5, 100 people will put FD, open FD. Now, if banks FD rate has come to 6%, out of that 100, 40, 50 people will only invest in FD now. The other 50, 60 people will find new other ways to save money, or they will decide to not save money at all. They might decide to spend the money. So that's how one rate decrease will have multiple ripple effect. It will have a lot of other second order, third order consequences. Now let's say instead of bank decreasing the rate, what if the bank increases the rate? If bank increases the rate, then again lending will become costly. So you are getting housing loan at 8%, suddenly it will become 9%. Then people will buy less and less loan. People will start less and less businesses. People will buy less and less houses. That means real estate business will get affected. Less and less buildings will be built, so less and less number of people will be employed. So the consequence again goes like this. That means there will be unemployment situation. More number of people opening business is always good for a country, because when business is getting opened, when buildings get built, it gives employment for the people. When unemployment decreases, crime rate also decreases. You see where I'm going? So this is exactly what a small thing will have big level of consequences. Now let's also see the same thing from tax rates perspective. Let's say government raises income tax rates. What will happen? People will be left with less and less money. Let's say with the current level of income tax rate, I have to pay 40,000 rupees tax to the government. But government has increased the tax rate. Because of that, I have to pay now 60,000 as income tax to the government. I am left with 20,000 less money. I will also try to save more of whatever the money that I have. So what will I do? I will not even spend the other money because I think that I already paid extra 20,000 to the government in the form of tax. At least let me save the other amount of cash that whatever I have. So what will I do? I will try to naturally preserve the money that I have. When I talk about tax rate, it's not just the income tax rate. It is also about the indirect tax rate, which is GST rate. When the government raises tax rates, the products and services costs will go up. Then what will happen? Inflation will increase. Then what will happen? If the inflation increases, people will find it hard and hard to buy and consume and enjoy services. People will go less on trips. So tourism will get affected. People who run cab business, airlines, railway, everything will get affected. It will lead to a recession situation. But what is the other side of the picture? If government raises more tax, both from income tax route and from indirect tax route, government will have more money in its hands. If government has more money in its hands, at least it can invest that in some public project. It can construct a dam, it can construct a bridge, it can construct more schools, it can construct more hospitals. So that is the positive side of it. Let's say government reduces tax rates, then I will have more income with me, which means previously I was paying 50,000 income tax to the government, now I'm paying only 30,000 income tax to the government. So I have extra 20,000 with me. Most likely people, let's say they have made some savings, cost savings from tax, they will not try to save this money. They will think that, okay, now this 20,000 is free for me. Let me as well spend it. I might buy a great shoe. I might book a trip to some tourist location, or I might watch a cinema, or I will put that money in index funds or mutual funds somewhere else. I'll buy stock. Anyway, I'll not try to keep that money with me. I'll try to put that money back into market. Like me, if a lot of people decide not to keep the money with themselves and put that money back into circulation, into the market thrives. So that will lead to boom situation. Economy overall, it grows. Now, because of the last 10 years, particularly the ease of doing business has increased in India, a lot of foreign investments are coming into India. I have also given an example of Apple factory coming into India. We should also see it will only lead to more and more multinational companies setting up their factory in India because, again, the economic environment is good. Why do you think Apple would switch their production from China into India? Because the ease of doing business is better in India than in China. That's what I've read in the news. So that is the economic environment. You have to see whether the economy is in boom or is in recession. You might also have heard the news about Sri Lanka, isn't it? The bankruptcy of the country itself, which means they have more liability than more income they can generate, the more assets that they have. The whole country itself is kind of in a bankrupt situation, which means inflation is extremely high, its currency power is extremely low. So these are the examples of some troubled economies. Now, in this climate, if you are a businessman, you would think twice, or you will almost decide not to open a factory in Sri Lanka because the economy is not that great. So that is this lecture, the economic environment. I hope you understood this dimension of economical aspect of assessing a business environment. Hello and welcome back. In today's video, we will talk about the second dimension of the business environment, which is the social environment. Social environment is about asking this one particular question, one specific question, which is, am I in the right locality doing the right business? So that's the first and very specific question that we have to ask. How do you put that into action? How do you verify whether you are in the right locality doing the right business? So the first step that you have to do is you have to make an assessment of the demographics. What do I mean by demographics? Demography means a study of the people who are located in a particular locality. What do you study about that people? First of all, you have to check how much is the population density. Is that locality so densely populated or so loosely spread out, not so densely populated? That's the first question. Second is, what are all the mix of people, which is what is the age group in that locality? Are there a lot of people between 18 to 25, or are there a lot of children in that locality, or that locality consists of a lot of aged people? Or is it an extremely mixed type of locality where you cannot particularly pinpoint and say, okay, this type of people are the standout group in this locality? And then you also see the gender mix. Are there a lot of males in this locality, or is it a female dominated locality? And then finally, the race and cultural mix. So let's say if we take the example of America, a lot of places where there are a majority of black people in that particular area, and then there are some localities where a lot of white people live in that area, and there is a particular locality where there are a lot of Asian people like Chinese, Japanese, Korean people, Thailand, Vietnamese people. Like this, the entire American geography can be split into race-wise localities. I will give you a specific example. Because I live in Chennai, I'll use Chennai as a case study here. If you see Chennai, there are these localities called OMR, Sholinganallur, Taramani and Siruseri. If you see these areas, there are a lot of IT companies located in this area. So these four areas are located very nearby to each other, and they are called like the IT hub of Chennai. There is also a lot of group of apartments in that locality. So there will be an IT park, and 200, 300 meters later or 2 kilometers away, there will be a big gated community. A lot of people who live in these areas will be predominantly working in these companies only. That means they are IT employees. IT employees, what could be the age group? The age group of people working in IT sector will be 22 to 23 maximum, 40 to 45. Of course, old people will be there, but predominant age group is between this 20 to 40. So the people who stay there are relatively young, and predominantly they work in IT sector. So what type of people who work in IT sector? So the people who work in IT sector are those kind of free, fun-loving and outgoing. So that means if you want to set up a business in this locality, what type of business will you set up? What type of things these people will consume? What do these people need? They work all 5 days in a week, then they need 2 long days of weekend, and in those 2 days they need something to take their mind off the work. So that means what can you set up? What business activity will be useful here? You can set up the cinema theaters, good restaurants, and because these people are young and outgoing, you can also set up bars and bowling alleys, all these fun activities, snooker, playing arcade, all these fun activities. Malls also will be very relevant in this area, shopping malls. Based on this type of age group and the nature of work that they do, you set up business according to that. Now I will give you another example of a contrast scenario from what we saw before. These are the areas in Chennai called Nanganallur, Mambalam and Madipakam. In these areas, the predominant people are those who have worked hard all their life and then they have decided to retire. I am not saying that there are no young people in Nanganallur, Mambalam or Madipakam. There are young people, there are school-going kids over these places, but the predominant population, the majority of population is the people who are at the end of their career. They worked for 35, 40 years, they have done their service, and they will be around 60 to 65 years of age or even above that. So they will be living in the last stage of their life as retired people. So they choose this locality because they will have a lot of, again, community around this. There will be a lot of retired people. So they again have their own way of socializing in this community. These people are mostly bank employees, government officers, very conventional and orthodox. Now, at this stage of their life, as I said, they are now 60 plus. At this stage of their life, what do they mostly need? They need healthcare. They need religious activities. They need spaces for doing yoga, old age fitness centers. These are the businesses that can thrive very well in this particular localities. You can actually see if you come to Nanganallur, Namambalam and Madipakam in Chennai, you will see a lot of these businesses. Hospitals, pharmacies, yoga centers, community center for old age people. So now you understand, now you get the idea. This type of locality will be in every city, need not be confined only to Chennai. You can find the same mix in Mumbai as well, in Delhi as well, in Kolkata as well. Every particular city will have this type of contrasting population spread within that particular city. Now let's see one last example before we wrap up this topic. This type of business you would have seen already. YouTube reaction channels from abroad targeting the Indian audience. What type of videos they upload? They do a lot of reaction videos for Bollywood and South movie scenes or even for the whole movie. And they will also react to Indian cricket videos. Basically, this American people react to Indian cricket videos because cricket is new in America. So you can see a lot of videos on YouTube that American watching cricket for the first time. or a baseball fan watching cricket for the first time. How does this type of channels work? These channel owners, they have assessed the Indian environment and the emotional nature of Indian audience very well. First thing, that India is extremely densely populated. There are a lot of YouTube accounts operating from India. A lot of us use YouTube in India. Then, which means they have a great market to make videos for. And then what is the second thing that they see? The emotional nature of Indian people, which is that we kind of like when foreign people take interest in our culture. So we are naturally curious to see, okay, now American has seen my video. Okay, let me see what he thinks about my video, or what she thinks about our Indian cricket, or just basically our game of cricket. No, we are naturally curious towards that. So we want to see how they react, and we find kind of a happiness around, okay, that here's a person who is interested about a South Indian movie, an American is interested about a South Indian movie. So we naturally tend to click on those videos and follow those creators. This is another good example of how, if you master the social environment, you can do business very well. Assess the environment first, assess the demographics, and based on that you design your business. Or if you already have a business, then pick the right society and then set up shop in that society. Don't open a fancy restaurant in a city where there are a lot of old age people. It's as simple as that. To wrap up the video, the final question, one more time let's ask, am I in the right locality doing the right business? That's social environment for you. Hello and welcome back. In today's video, we will talk about technological environment. So in business studies, with respect to this chapter, if you talk about technological environment, it means make an assessment of how vulnerable or independent is your business with respect to technology. What do I mean by this? You have a business. Is your business extremely vulnerable to the changes in technology, or is your business independent with respect to changes that is happening in technology? We will see some examples of how several fields have evolved with the changes in technology. When technology changed, these fields have also completely changed. Let us see some examples one by one. See photography. Until 90s and mid 2000s, people, when they had to take photography, they took photography in a film camera, and the photos were developed in a dark room. So usually if you need a passport size photo, you have to go in advance, and it will take a couple of days or even at least 24 hours for you to get back your passport size photo. These days, everything is digital. The cameras have become digital. So if you need a passport size photo, you just go there and they just develop it in a matter of 15 minutes, and you get 8 copies, 10 copies, 16 copies of passport size photos immediately. So that is photography. And with respect to videography, what happened? Let's say in the 90s until the mid 2000s, people, if they wanted an aerial shot for a film, they literally had to carry a heavy camera in a helicopter. The helicopter will hover around that entire area, and then the videographer will take the footage. So that's how older days the aerial shots used to be. These days what happens? These days we just do it through a drone. Even with high quality camera, with the help of a drone, we can take as many aerial shots we want as possible. So that's the advent of technology. This particular field has changed. Now what about driving? Previously the taxi business used to be that people manually drove cars. There is a taxi wala that who used to be there. Now we are at the cusp of moving into driverless self-driving cars. In the US, you can already see in Los Angeles and San Francisco, there are a lot of taxi businesses with self-driving cars. You just get in there, you just load where you have to go in the GPS, and the car will take you and drop you wherever you have to go. It's there in China also. This selfless driving car business is there in China also. You can see a lot of YouTube videos. They can show about exactly how this driverless self-driving car taxi business works. Okay, so that's the change. In India, you won't see this driverless cars yet, but it's not quite far. Maybe in another 10 years, in India also we will have a lot of taxis or a lot of cars where you manually don't have to drive. The car will drive itself. So that's the driving aspect. And what about aviation aspect? Again, until 90s and mid 2000s, pilots had to literally control the entire duration of the flight. Modern day airplanes almost automated, so the pilots will have to only take care of the takeoff procedures and during the landing procedures. And again, in mid flight, in case there is some emergency, pilots will have to manually intervene. Otherwise, 90 to 95% of flight operations is done autopilot. So again, that's the impact of technology in aviation field. And finally, let's talk about our field of accounting. 80-90 years ago, people were literally posting journal entries on paper with a pencil or pen. Then calculators came. So people did not need to have a lot of things in their memory. Their brains kind of freed up. So they outsourced computing work to the calculator. So addition, subtractions, all the basic mathematical operations were done by the calculator. Then computers came, 80s, late 80s, mid 90s. In India, it was like fully computerized since the early 2000s. Banks have become computerized, railways became computerized, everything became computerized. And also with the advent of internet, everything became a networked set of computers. Then everything became interconnected and entire accounting went into the computerized format. So you don't have to literally write anything on pen and paper. You just have nowadays softwares like Tally, SAP, Oracle. You just have to type the entries and the software itself will do the rest of the accounting for you. So that's how accounting has evolved. Now let me give you myself as an example. I am a teacher by profession. Again, until the 2000s or when I was a student, how the teaching industry was, let's say I was a tuition teacher back in mid 90s or in mid 2000s, I just had to know about what was the subject that I was teaching. Let's say I was a maths teacher, I just had to know maths completely and I should know how to teach properly. Then I would be able to do a good job as a teacher. That skill set was sufficient until the 2010s. Then in mid 2010s, like 2015, almost let's say 2018-19, when YouTube became quite famous in India, when internet became quite cheap in India, teaching slowly started to get into the YouTube space. Particularly after the COVID episode, during the lockdown period, every school, every college went into online, every work went into online, education particularly went into online. Therefore, after this COVID period, you see how many YouTube channels are there. Any field that you take, it doesn't matter 11th and 12th, accounts or anything. Take physics, chemistry, medicine, CA, engineering. You can see programming. You can see so many YouTube channels having lot of valuable content on the YouTube space itself. When we studied plus 2, we used to take the primary learning from the teacher itself. And if at all we are very curious, we will go to some library, get some reference books, and we used to study that way. Nowadays, you have a world of library into YouTube itself. So in case you have any doubt, you can get into YouTube, give a search query, and you will get your answer immediately. So your learning itself has changed. That means my teaching procedure should also change. I should adapt myself as a teacher also. So back then, my commerce teacher, my accounts teacher, it was good enough for her to know just how to teach accounting. Just be good enough with the teaching and be good enough with accounting. But today, I am an accounts teacher, I am a BST teacher. Apart from knowing what is BST, apart from knowing what is the core accounting principles and core accounting knowledge, I should also know how to operate a camera. I should also know how to set up a YouTube studio. I should also know how to talk to a camera and how to talk to a mic and how to edit a video and how to operate a YouTube channel. So if I am not technologically updated, I am going to be kind of left behind. Imagine if I don't know how to operate technology, I will be able to serve a maximum of 40-50 people in my locality. But when I master technology and when I learn to adapt to these changes in technology, my BST knowledge is not going to be confined with 40-50 people. My accounting knowledge is not going to be confined with to 40-50 people. I can serve almost endless people by embracing technology because my videos are uploaded on YouTube. So that's how teaching also has changed. Like this, every field has changed over the last 8 to 9 years, particularly with the changes of technology. And nowadays you have artificial intelligence. This AI revolution is happening right now. We are in the middle of it. And we have no idea in another 5 years how many things are going to be done completely differently than how they are being done today. Okay, The final question, one more time we have to ask is, how vulnerable or independent is your business with respect to changes in technology? Tomorrow when you open a business, this is the question you have to ask. How vulnerable or how independent is my business with respect to technology? We will see some examples of vulnerable businesses. Manufacturing sector is completely vulnerable because the more the technology evolves, the manufacturing sector is also going to change that way. You see, previously 80-90 years ago, manufacturing automobiles was completely done by human beings. But nowadays, you see every factory is automated. In Japan, factories of Toyota, you see almost 80% is done by the machines, be it drilling the nuts and bolts and affixing the parts, components, everything. Very little human involvement. Again, food product companies, let's take some examples of milkshake manufacturing. Back in the day, people used to pour the milk into the packet and seal the packet and sell it. Now you see with the advent of a Tetra Pak machine, this Tetra Pak will almost pack 100 milkshake units in a matter of 1 minute. In 1 minute, it will throw out 100 units of milkshakes. Whatever be the milkshake that you see on the supermarket, Amul or any other milkshake lassi that you see on supermarket, which was packed in Tetra Pak, is done by this machine. And this machine has completely changed how liquids are being packed. Okay, so that's the role of technology here. And then obviously cosmetic business, how shampoos were being packed, how face creams were being packed back in the day. They were done manually. Now they are done with the help of machines in a much faster rate. Now let's see some examples of independent businesses. It doesn't matter how technology grows. These businesses kind of are immune to the changes in technology. The best example is real estate businesses. No matter what happens, people are still going to live in house. People still need houses. Of course, we have this JCB machines, all those things are there, but still, it doesn't matter in which country, even in the advanced countries, construction is still done by human beings largely. It might get fully automated by robots someday, but that day is quite far. At least not in the next 20-30 years, is as far as I can imagine. But then again, restaurants, you can see, people need food at the end of the day. So, chefs are still human beings. You don't see much of tech inside a restaurant. Okay, billing has become updated with technology, maybe seat allocation in a restaurant, reservation has become online, and all those things that I agree. But still the food preparation part, food serving part, we still need human element to it, isn't it? So that is restaurant. So these are some points that I wanted to share with you with respect to understanding technological environment. Let me know in the comment section below, what are all the changes in tech that I have missed in this video? What more changes have happened to your knowledge that you can share? You can write that in the comment section so other students can also see. Hello and welcome back. In today's video, we will talk about political environment. When it comes to assessing the general business environment, so we can make better business decisions, understanding the political climate of that particular environment is absolutely essential. When it comes to assessing the political climate and understanding the political aspects of a particular environment, the first thing we need to see is the type of rule in that particular environment. For example, if we are planning to invest in a foreign country, we are going to see whether that country has a democratic rule, or is that country ruled by a dictator, or is that country still following a monarchical type of government. So if it is a democracy like India or the United States, then there will be a fixed term for every prime minister and president. In the US, the term for every president is 4 years. At the end of the 4th year, every president has to vacate the office and they will be subject to a re-election. In India, it is 5 year. 5 year period, every prime minister, the term comes to an end. So what is the advantage of it? If it is a fixed tenure and the country's head is being represented by the people, then it means that the people of that particular country has a say in who gets to govern that country. But you cannot say that with respect to dictatorship or a monarchy. So that is with respect to the type of rule. Now let us talk about the political stability. Political stability is, if it is a democratic country, is that country's president or prime minister able to fulfill their entire tenure? Can they last till their full term? To give you an example, in India, since 2000 until 2025, over the last 25-year period, every Prime Minister has done their full term, which means election kept coming only in every 5 years. So there was no sudden change of government, no alliance shift, no protest, and then because of that, there is a new government. There was no such extraordinary occurrences in our country for the last 25 years. Whether this party is ruling or that party is ruling, every party did their full 5-year period. But we cannot say this in neighbor countries like Nepal, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. Recently, there was a government change in Bangladesh, and again in Pakistan also, the government changes very frequently, and also it is essentially ruled by military. And particularly about Nepal, in the last 10 years, there were 5 government changes, which means every 18 to 24 months, there is a change in the Prime Minister's office. This could be because of many reasons. The alliance will shift, the party's support will change from one person to the other. So suddenly the other person will become powerful and oust this person from the Prime Minister's office. And this keeps on happening like a musical chair event every 18 to 24 months. So imagine every 18 to 24 months, a new person comes into the office as Prime Minister, and he or she will have a different financial policy, different legal policy. Because of that, the country's overall growth trajectory really gets affected. Law enforcement gets affected. So now the second aspect is to see whether the country is politically stable or not. Once you assure that the country is politically stable, then the next thing that you have to check is whether the country is ruled by a right-wing government or a country is ruled by left-wing government. The upcoming discussion is not going to judge that whether right-wing government is good or left-wing government is good. Both have their own advantages and disadvantages, but as a student of business, what you have to understand is to see the general theoretical characteristic of each and every type of government. Now, if you see the right-wing governments, generally they will prefer lower taxes. They will say that we want to reduce the burden of tax on the people so that let people pay less and less tax. So they will have more and more personal money, which they will again spend it back on the economy, and money will somehow come back to the market. That's their ideology. They will prefer lower taxes. That means even individuals will be taxed less, even the businesses will be taxed less. That's the first point. And then they also will focus on increased ease of doing business. So they will have relatively less regulations compared to the left-wing governments, where you don't need so many permits, you don't need so many forms to be filled. So let's say you want to set up a factory in a right-wing country, the process will be done much faster because the government is more focused on encouraging businesses. The last point is minimal government intervention. Again, government does not come into the economical aspects of the country that much. It will not come into the business administration aspects. The government sticks to its business on just general governance. We also saw in our economic environment topic the capitalist and socialist type of economies. The right-wing government generally follow capitalist form of economy. So that's the first part. Now let's see what this left-wing governments generally do. The left-wing governments think that they like to involve in the active business aspects of the country. They would like to control the business functions in the country also, which means there will be a lot of noticeable government intervention with respect to the business environment. So naturally they collect more taxes. When left-wing government collects more taxes, people are kind of burdened, but the government gets a lot of money as tax, and then the left-wing government thinks that, or at least believes that, whatever the money that we collected from public, yes, we collect slightly more money than the normal countries. Some countries you will see 40% income tax, 50% income tax. So those countries, the government gets a lot of money from the public, which it puts back into public, gives back to public in the form of social welfare schemes. A lot of countries you might have seen free education, free healthcare, a lot of social security, These are the examples, which means government gets a lot of money from the people, but at the end of the day, it tries to gives it back to the people in the form of public welfare. I've seen even countries there are transport is also pretty much almost free. So these are the two different types of governments. Now you as a student of business should understand which type of political ideology is good for your business. Should you choose a right wing economy or you should choose a left wing government? You have to decide that. Hello and welcome back. In today's lecture, let's talk about legal environment. We are currently in the chapter called business environment. So there are 5 dimensions to every business environment, which are economic, social, technological, political, and legal. So today we are in the last dimension of a business environment, which is legal environment. So what do we need to learn in this topic? When you are trying to assess the legal environment of a particular place, you need to understand to what extent and to what severity the statutes of that country or that state is being enforced. Or to put it in simple words, how many total legal regulations or how many total laws are there in that country. So you have to make an assessment. And among all the laws and regulations that are currently in enforcement in that country, how many are applicable to you? And how many are severely applicable, compulsorily applicable? And how many are just recommendatory in nature? You have to also see that. Now let us see some rules and regulations, some laws that are being enforced upon Indian businesses. The first one is Income Tax Act. Every business has to pay income tax. The general rate of income tax keeps varying. For companies, it is like 22%, 25%. For foreign companies, it is 35%. Apart from the general income tax, the companies also face something called surcharge. So if you are a company and if you are making profit, if you are making income, you have to pay a certain amount of that profit or that income to the government. So that is compulsory. Next, let us talk about Companies Act. Companies Act generally governs the entire administrative process of how a company should be run, how a company should be registered, what are all the rules that a company should follow. To give you a simple example, every company must maintain books of accounts. But the Companies Act says that every company should maintain books of accounts on accrual basis, which means if you are a company, you cannot maintain your books of accounts on cash basis. And also, if you are a company, your books of accounts should follow double entry bookkeeping system. You cannot say that I'm comfortable with single entry system. Let me keep my books of accounts under single entry system. You cannot say like that. If you say like that and if you practice that, you are already violating the Companies Act. So that's how the Companies Act works. This is just an example for you. Now let us talk about GST Act. In India, if you are doing services, you can do a turnover of 20 lakhs. If you are doing only up to 20 lakhs, you are not needed to register under GST, so you don't have to charge GST on your invoices. But let us say you are a person who provides services. Let's say you are an interior designer or you are taking classes, or let's say you are a doctor. You are providing some service and your annual turnover is more than 20 lakhs. Then you have to get registered under the GST Act and you should start charging GST on the invoices that you charge to your customers, and you have to pay that amount to the government. And in case if you are not a provider of service and if you are a seller of goods, then this amount is 40 lakhs instead of 20 lakhs. So if you are a buyer and seller of some electronic goods, you can sell till rupees 40 lakhs, and until that you don't have to charge GST. But let's say if your volume of sales increases beyond 40 lakhs, goes beyond 40 lakhs, then you have to charge GST. So that is with respect to GST. Now let us talk about the Factories Act. Factories Act, as the name says, governs the entire rules and regulations of how a typical factory should be set up and how they should be run, and what are all the safety and precautionary items that these factories should keep in mind. So those all provisions will be covered under the Factories Act. To give you an example, there is a small provision in this Factories Act that says that if a factory employs 250 workers on ordinary basis, then that factory should have a canteen administered in that premises. So that means there has to be a canteen that serves food for those people. Again, this is a compulsory provision. You should not violate this. So like this, there are many more legal provisions and acts that will have impact on the way how you do business. To give you more examples, SEBI Act and regulations. If you are a company who is listed on stock market, then again you have to follow all the SEBI acts and legal provisions, regulatory provisions. So that is SEBI Act for you. SEBI is Securities Exchange Board of India. You might be aware of it. And then there is this FEMA Act. Let's say if you are an importer or exporter, or if you deal with foreign currencies, let's say you have some remittances to be made abroad, or let's say you have to get some money from abroad. Again, you have to follow this FEMA Act and regulations. FEMA stands for Foreign Exchange Management Act. And then there are a lot of other disclaimers and statutory warnings that you have to adhere to. To give you some examples, let us say you are a namkeen company and you sell peanuts. So on that package of the peanuts, you have to mention that contains peanuts, may cause allergies. So you have to give that. If you have seen any package that has some peanuts or other nuts in it, you can see the ingredients of that package, and below that there will be a small warning given that contains peanuts or contains cashew nut or contains almonds, may cause allergies. You have to give this warning because there are a lot of people who get allergies when they consume nuts. And there are some obvious examples. Let's say if you are selling any nicotine based product, or if you are selling alcohol, you have to mention that in your package that it contains alcohol, it contains nicotine, it is not good for health, it is injurious to health. All those things you have to mention, which you might have already seen in many places. And also in movies and TV series, whenever there is a scene where there is usage of cigarette or consumption of alcohol, you might have seen a statutory warning alerting people that this type of behavior is not encouraged. So these are the things that one has to understand when it comes to assessing the legal environment. Hello and welcome back. In today's lecture, we will talk about the economic environment of India post-independence up to 1991 and what happened after 1991. In this topic, we will be broadly covering the three main aspects, which are globalization, liberalization, and privatization. In 1991, these three key reforms that happened, which totally turned around the economic situation in India. But first, let us understand how the situation was pre-1991. After independence, India adopted socialistic type of economy, which means India wanted the government to control pretty much every commerce activity in India. The government decided to interfere in everything, including import, export, production, sales. Pretty much you name everything, the government wanted that to do it, which means the extent of private players were very limited, and government said that if at all there has to be some private player that should start a business or wants to get into business, that private party should get a license from the government. So that is what it is called, a license Raj. It used to be, in a funny way, it used to be called as license Raj, because whatever the business that you think in modern day that you can easily start, older days it was not that easy to start. You have to get a license from the government, and government will be monitoring you. For example, today you want to manufacture sugar. Today you can manufacture sugar, set up a factory, and you can start a business on your own, and you can make your business plan pretty much the way you want. But pre-1991, that is 50s, 60s, 70s, it was not like that. If you are interested in business and you want to manufacture sugar, first you have to get the license and permit from the government, and only then you can even think about setting up a factory. Government will also decide how much you should produce, how much you should sell, almost to the extent at what price you should sell. Which means you are namesake a businessman, but government will tell pretty much everything to what you have to do. Now, I will just give you a cross reference. This is a site called indiabefore91.in. You can see key features of License Raj. Licenses were required for starting new companies, for producing new products and expanding production capacities. Businesses had to take government approval for laying off workers. So it's not just that you just can get the license one time and you can start the business and then you can go doing what you want to do. It was not like that. Let's say the business is not running well and you have to lay off a few workers and send them home. In modern day, the private companies don't have to ask anybody. They just have to issue an announcement and that's it. The employees have to go home. But during this license Raj era, you cannot even lay off workers on your own. Again, you have to seek government's approval for it. And then the import duties for cars were around 125%. So to put it in perspective, let's say you want to import a foreign car, the price of that car is 10 lakhs. Then by the time you import it, you have to pay 12.5 lakhs as duty to the government. Then how much is it your landed cost? 10 lakhs the original price, 12.5 lakhs the duty itself came. So you have to totally pay 22.5 lakhs as the price of the car by the time you get it into your hands. So that's how costly the import tariffs were. Because of all these strict regulations and everything, what was the impact? You see the GDP growth rate from 1960 to 1980, India had the lowest in this South Asian countries. You can see 3.5% India had, but you see South Korea 8.8, Taiwan 9.6, Singapore 9.2, even Pakistan had a better GDP growth than India between this period of 1960 to 1980. So the bottom line is India had adopted a socialistic type of economy, and because of that it did not work. The trade deficit became huge and the government almost became bankrupt. The another problem of this type of economic policy is that it created a lot of monopoly. You all know by now what is monopoly. Monopoly is that in a given sector there is only one company playing that game. So there are no competitors at all. What is the example of monopoly in today's scenario? Take railways for example. In India, still railways is governed only by Indian Railways. There are no competitors, there are no private players, which means whatever Indian Railway thinks, it can do. Imagine in today's scenario, only one Indian Railway is the noticeable monopoly. But 30-40 years back, every sector had a monopoly. So let's say bank, there will be a monopoly. Let's say insurance, there will be a monopoly company. Let's say a TV, there will be a monopoly company. So there are hardly any choices, and even whatever the choices that we had only one player doing that. So pretty much whatever that player thinks, that is the rule of the land. Okay, so these are all the problems. And also let's think it in this way. If you have competition, you will have that fire to work hard, isn't it? You have to run, because if you sleep and if you behave complacent, your competitor will get the market share, you will lose the business. But what if you are the only player in the town? Then you don't have the fear of competition. Then what will happen? Then I know anyway I'm going to come first. If I play to my best or if I don't play to my best, there is nobody who is going to beat me. There is nobody who is going to threaten my position. So why do I even have to sweat that much? The companies and organizations who were monopoly at that time became complacent because of lack of competition. Then what happened? As I said, it led to huge trade deficit and the government almost became bankrupt. So the people woke up and decided whatever that we have been following from independence until now is not working. Let us go towards a free market society. So India reduced all its socialistic preferences and started to move towards capitalist type of economy. To execute this plan, India took three big decisions, which are to liberalize the country, to privatize the economy, and then to globalize the economy. First thing is, what is liberalization? To liberate industries from the shackles of licensing system. The government decided that I'm not going to poke my nose into your system. You want to start a business? Start a business. Government kept a select sectors, 15 to 16 sectors, which are extremely crucial, like defense, railways, national safety, all those things like building airports, public projects. Government decided that, okay, these things you still have to get license, but other things like, let's say you want to manufacture sugar, let's say you want to make soap, let's say you want to make cosmetics, okay, go ahead, do. So that is the liberalization aspect. So government decided to reduce the requirement of licenses to start a business. So now starting a business became easy. Many people will come forward to start a business. So that was the first point, liberalization, just to increase the ease of doing business. The second point is privatization. Again, reduce the role of public sector companies in the economy, reduce the role of government companies in the economy. I will just give you some examples. Back in the day, if you have to talk through telephone, BSNL was the only company that was there. Now, after privatization, we have lots of private brands, isn't it? You have Airtel, there was a company called Aircel, then there was this company called Docomo, then Vodafone, you had Idea, all these companies. Today, the telecom sector has fallen into three players, Airtel, Jio, and Vodafone Idea, VI. Still, which means government is not controlling the telecom market. Telecom market is almost controlled 90-95% by the private parties. So that's the first example. Then you see public broadcasting, TV. I remember growing up in the 90s, we had only Doordarshan. So Doordarshan was a government channel. That was the only option that you have. If you have to watch only Doordarshan. Similarly, radio. We had All India Radio, Vivid Bharati. That's it. That's the only option. If you have to listen to radio, only All India Radio. Then what happened? Privatization happened. Star Network, Sony Network, the Z Network, those parties came into picture. So you had channels like Star Sports, Star Plus, Sony, Setmax, all those channels. And then in radio, you started to have lots of FM radios like Radio 1, Radio Mirchi, Fever, Red, Big. All these private radio stations came into picture. Then again, aviation. Two aircrafts used to be there, Air India and Indian Airlines. Air India used to go for abroad and Indian Airlines is for all the domestic flights. Then again, what happened after privatization? Jet Airways, Indigo, Kingfisher, SpiceJet, Go Air, Vistara, all these private names you get to see after this privatization. Again, banking, we had only traditional nationalized bank, State Bank, Punjab National Bank, very nationalized, almost government controlled it entirely. Now you have a lot of privatized bank like Barclays, Standard Chartered, and also you have banks like City Union Bank, HDFC, lots of privatized HSBC, private banks are there, Kotak Mahindra. Again, if you take insurance, back in the day you had only LIC and GIC. Now you have lot of private players like Bajaj, Allianz, Star Health, Tata AIG, ACO, and then you have ICICI, Lombard. All these different private companies that are available, we can avail their services. And lastly, the globalization aspect. Globalization is about wanting a lot of effective foreign companies to make their investment in India. India lacked technology, India lacked innovation. So India wanted to improvise their automobile production, ramp up their automobile production, even in electronics and consumer goods and home appliances. India decided we lacked the technology. Therefore, let us invite the foreign participants to set up shop here. With the help of their R&D, we can increase our circulation of these goods inside the country. So companies like Honda, Suzuki, Cognizant is a tech-based company. Then you have Hyundai, and then you have Samsung. Samsung, you know, they started with home appliances, TV, fridge and everything. Now Samsung primarily has become a smartphone-based company. And then we also know a company called Sansui, which is a TV company from Japan. And then Sony, we know, again, it's a Japanese company, Panasonic. So there are countless examples that we can see the names of foreign players coming into India. Some more names that are coming to my mind: McDonald's, Subway, Pizza Hut, Domino's. These are all again foreign brands, but they have set up their shop in India. So that is globalization. And globalization also was aimed to increase the volume of imports and exports that are done from our country. So these three measures, liberalization, privatization and globalization, completely changed the way, the trajectory of Indian economy, which was lagging and which was almost bankrupt, to become the fourth largest economy in the world. So I hope you understood this entire concept of economic environment in India and also the previous lectures like the dimensions of environment. With this, we are concluding the third chapter, business environment. From tomorrow, we will be seeing the fourth chapter, which is planning. I will see you in the tomorrow's lecture. Thank you and bye-bye.